Welcome to the Urban Talk number 4. It's pleasure to me to see you in this large number. I hope that you will enjoy in this 1.5, maybe 2 hours of talk. And let me introduce our, I can say, host, Ružica. So Ružica, welcome, and you can start the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Milan. Good evening and welcome everybody to 4th edition of Urban Talks, titled Global Local Challenges in Architecture. We are Belgrade International Week of Architecture, and we realized this with Hub Daily Space from Niš. We are Danica Jovović-Prodanović and Ružica Sarić from Belgrade International Week of Architecture.
But before we start, I would just like also to introduce the Future Architecture platform. This Urban Talk number 4 is happening within the umbrella of this huge platform that brings together 26 institutions and organizations from all over the Europe, which are in this or that way involved in the field of architecture and urban environment. So 4 years ago, we started together this program, and Bina participated in the Future Architecture from the very beginning with the various formats of the program, exhibitions, conferences, and workshops. The idea of the Future Architecture platform is to present visions about the future of architectures from the side of the young professionals, people who are just entering the scene and starting their professional career. On one hand side, our idea is to promote the ideas and visions of the future of architecture, but on the other hand side also to present these young professionals and also to form the new cooperation and establish new cooperation between the member organizations, which are, as I already said, 26 from all over the Europe. So our idea this time was to organize these 5 urban talks within the Future Architecture platform program within the Bina Festival. But due to this COVID situation, we couldn't do it and we decided to do it online. But apart from that, we also wanted this time to invite our partners, our friends and colleagues from other cities outside of Belgrade. And this is how we introduce our new partner, Delhi Hub from Niš. And now before we start, I would just like to invite our hosts to present themselves. So Delhi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's start. So welcome to Delhi Delhi Space for Creative Activity. Delhi Space from the beginning was the center of creativity, not just in the city of Niš, but also for the whole South Serbia region. So let's start the journey which began 5 years ago here in our city Niš. 5 years ago, the first co-working space, southern from the capital, Belgrade, was created or founded here in our second large town in the Serbia, Niš. In that space we are today. So it means that this space is real, and this space is actually the center of the creativity here in our city. I can say that in the past five past years, Delhi Space was the place where the young people who are interested in creative industry, entrepreneurship, business, work, create, and we can say live together every day in harmony. And usually we say Delhi Space, what in Serbian mean Delhi is share. We like to say that Delhi Space is space who actually create similar energy, similar ideas and similar values to the bigger projects. Today, people say that Delhi is super cool. And what that means? We are proud that somebody said that our space is super cool. And that means that super people works in a cool space. And what if there is no those super people here in Serbia, especially in our city? And what if there is not this kind of place? Then just the super people will work somewhere, and or there just be a cool space with no super people who can work. So from the very beginning, Delhi Space is closely connected with architecture, and that is the reason why our partners choose us to be a partner of these urban talks, because we can say a lot about architectures, and we were included in the process of the architecture creating, especially architecture creating environment here. And I'm very proud that here in Delhi, we have today Mr. Ivan Reddy and Mr. Vojislav, who are, I can say, very important for our community with two different aspects. You can see this is a lot of experience on my left side, a lot of entrepreneurship idea, a lot of creation ideas on my right side. So there are some numbers about the Delhi space. So far we have 51 tenants which were work, create and start their companies here in Delhi. The number of the entrepreneurs was 26, and what is the really interesting point is that 23 people work from Delhi were the nomads. So they work from all over the world, and they decide to one point of their work needs to be from the Delhi space. So we work a lot. We continue with empowering the youth for the entrepreneurship voters, but also we continue to work events, workshops, and competitions which are closely connected with the architecture. In the last 2 years, we create 2 climatons, and that's the main point of my talk today, because in those 2 climatons we try to use the modern architecture but also the green architecture, and to create something positive for our city. I'm happy that here in the studio is also Philip, who participated and actually who won in the competition. He's behind the screen, and he just shared with me when we talked before the start of the program, how that is important. So we get, I think, around 10 new ideas from the young people who want to create better city, who want to create better environment for themselves. Delhi Space is and will be for sure the main point of creativity and of the creation of innovative ideas here in our city. And at the end, let me say that I'm very proud to be here today. I'm very proud that Delhi Space is recognized in the city, and I'm very proud that I am the host of all our participants, but also I'm very proud that I'm host of these 2 wonderful persons who I'm sure will share their experience with us today. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Milan, very much. Just before we begin with our Urban Talk number 4, I would just like to say that the fourth edition of this Urban Talks is dedicated to the issue which is very actual in the world, not only in the field of architecture, but in the world as a whole. It's the problem of our climate problem, the climate change, and also a number of environmental issues. The panel talk, as we planned, titled Global Local Changes in Architecture, is somehow in line with the main activities that Akan architects are dealing with. And I must also say that within the architecture platform, Future Architecture Platform, we organize each year an open call for creatives to apply with their visions and ideas about the future of architecture. And Akan architects were chosen among the almost 400 participants as 25 finalists. So they are now Future Architecture Platform Fellow. and we would like to invite them to present their ideas about and to present what they work. So, Ruža, would you like to say a few words
Yes,
about
today
Arkan Architects?
Sam Turner and Megan Charney are with us from Aiken. So they will. The Aiken is a voluntary network of individuals from within architecture and related professions, and I think that is the best that we give floor to Aiken because they will represent themselves best.
So welcome.
So welcome.
Sam and Megan.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting us, and great introduction. Hi, my name's Sam, and Megan is here next to me on my screen. She's also on the first slide of our presentation, so I guess I should start sharing that, shall I? There we go. Can you see that okay? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I'm one of the coordinators at ACAN. Since we launched about a year ago, I've coordinated several groups focusing on existing buildings, carbon literacy, organizing our online or real life events, and just building the movement. I'm now on the steering group, and as the movement support coordinator, I'm developing our infrastructure so that we can scale nationally and internationally. Megan's a keen member of our circular economy group, and I'll let her introduce herself a little bit later. And we hope to give you a taste of what we've been doing in the UK and a little bit of inspiration, hopefully. So there are a lot of urgent matters currently calling for our attention. Climate activists talk about our house being on fire, and increasingly it is. While it's critical to address current issues, the science tells us that we face bigger challenges ahead, and fundamental changes are needed to our way of life if the human race is to survive them. We talk about carbon, our carbon footprint, carbon emissions, carbon credits, low carbon lifestyle, but what does this abstract notion really mean? The amount of carbon dioxide, CO2, in the Earth's atmosphere is a very delicate balance. Too little and the planet can't keep warm. Too much and it's too hot for our cell biology. We can trace atmospheric CO2 levels for millennia. This graph shows 800,000 years of data. Fluctuations are natural, but at no point did it pass 300 parts per million. It is now over 420 parts per million. Since the 1800s, scientists understood that CO2 could cause global warming. And this is seen in data illustrating the rise in the average global temperature of 1 degree already. With this, we're seeing more frequent and extreme weather events like the wildfires in Australia or currently in America and Brazil. In the Paris Agreement, almost every country in the world committed to limiting global average temperature to 2 degrees. And the subsequent IPCC special report outlined why we should limit warming to 1.5 degrees to avoid triggering feedback loops and much wider devastation. There have been promises and laws passed, but globally we're nowhere near on track to achieving these goals. We cannot escape changing our climate. We already have. The choice is, what future do we want to leave for our descendants? What legacy do we want to have? While we talk about sustainability, our children are on the streets, using whatever power they have to remind us that it's their future our inaction will ruin. The Architects Climate Action Network germinated on Waterloo Bridge during the April 2019 uprising and launched in October that year. Since then, we have grown in number and influence with hundreds of members across the UK. We understand that 39% of CO2 emissions are directly attributable to buildings, their creation and operation. That's such an incredible amount. The only way we can reduce CO2 emissions and limit the climate catastrophe heading towards us is to modify what and how we build now. ACAN is a voluntary network of individuals from within architecture and the related built environment professions. We give people a place to use their personal passion and their professional skills in a constructive way. Our mission is to mobilize a new movement of professional activists by building an open, supportive, and inclusive organization. ACAN empowers individuals to proactively seek radical change. Now, these few slides have quite a lot of text on, so I'm sorry, I need to skip through them fairly quickly, but we'll share the presentation or you can look us up on our website. Our aims are clearly set out as rapid decarbonisation, ecological regeneration, and cultural transformation. And we work by a set of principles requiring systematic change, open collaboration, honesty, and transparency. We work in a decentralized version of a self-organizing system or a holacracy, with individuals writing mandates for their roles and areas of work, making sure that we do this in a transparent and shared way across the network. Working groups form and meet plan campaigns with a specific area of focus, and we hold regular open meetings with invited speakers, presentations, updates, and like in this picture, a chance to critique campaigns. We currently have 8 thematic groups focusing on campaigns on specific areas of interest in architectural practice, from the circular economy group for education, knowledge sharing, to where the wild things aren't, looking at biodiversity and how that interacts with architecture. From what has been somewhat chaotic, an order is emerging, with infrastructure to support all of the campaigns and individuals in a rapidly expanding network, including chapters from across Europe. It's closest to you in Slovenia, North Macedonia, and Kosovo. There are the seeds of ACAN networks forming there, and I'd encourage you to join or start your own. Now, why do we do this? We do all this because we believe the role of the architect should be. Throughout history, architecture has never been divorced from politics. Buildings, infrastructure, and public spaces have been used to display power, colonialism, gentrification, globalization, but also community, resilience, and progress. Architecture is inherently political. However, working on single projects in specific locations makes it hard to address the flaws and the complexities of our built environment. Hard to engage with communities on a scale where you can actually make a difference. Environmental designs currently hinge on the goodwill of architects, clients, and the contractors. Without the right legislation, guidance that encourages regenerative thinking on a wider scale, good design on individual projects is just not good enough. Meaningful action will only come from challenging our current systems. This requires professionals to rise up and become activists. Individually, we may be small and disconnected, but together we have a voice that can represent the industry as a whole. Naomi Klein describes climate change as a collective problem that requires collective thinking. It is up to us to imagine what that alternative future could be. The power of activist groups lies in the ability to bring like-minded individuals together into a unified effort to push the agenda for more ambitious thinking. Environmentalist Bill McKibben was asked by someone, "What can I do as an individual?" His response was, "Don't be an individual." Going back to the role of an architect specifically, we need to ask ourselves, what part do we play in climate change? Where does architecture stop and where does activism start? Activism can take many forms, from getting out onto the streets and attending a protest to specifying a low embodied carbon material. We need to see activism in our everyday actions. We recognize that meaningful action can take place within your workplace as well as on the streets. We need to normalize critical thinking so we can hold our leaders accountable. We need to seek out knowledge we don't currently have. With every little action, we are one step closer to creating a more inclusive and resilient world. When we could meet in real life, we organised and took part in demonstrations. We challenged proposed changes to the policy that we found weren't good enough, and we pushed for mass responses to ensure expert advice could not be easily ignored. We are working with educators and policymakers to find and address flaws in our current systems. At events, we encourage difficult conversations about our current situation. We make it our business to get involved. Here we held the hustings with all 5 candidates for the RIBA presidential elections to talk about how they would deal with the climate emergency. Oh no, where's it gone? There we go. And we ran members for the RIBA Council. So we now have 2 members of ACAN on the RIBA Council and more in the running. We've connected with an incredible group of people. United, I believe what we can do individually, what we thought was impossible. Now I'm going to hand over to Megan from our Circular Economy group to talk about the work they are doing. Megan, just tell me your next slide when you're ready.
Okay. Hi, yeah, I'm Megan. I've been a member of the Circular Economy group since the first assembly, I think. And I should explain my background is in architecture. I'm the director of a small architecture practice in London, and I'm currently working for a local council as well, part-time, and I've managed to bring some of the learnings that I've made through ACAN into both of those roles. So that's been really interesting. But I'm certainly not an expert in the circular economy, and I think that probably is true of many of the members of our group. And I think that's part of the strength of this network, is that there is a freedom to be honest about what we don't know and to work together to build a collective knowledge, and to do that within the context of professional people from the same industry. But there's never been for me any sense that I was out of place. So that's been really important. So I'm going to talk a bit about the circular economy, and forgive me, I don't really know where to start with this, because it's obviously a massive topic. So I'm not going to go into detail, because I suspect that lots of people on this in this meeting probably already know what the circular economy is. So I won't dwell on it, but just really sort of top level, circular economy is an alternative to a traditional linear economy, which involves making, using, and then disposing items, in which we can keep resources in use for as long as possible, extract the maximum value from them whilst they are in use, then recover and regenerate products and materials at the end of each service life. So instead of things going in a linear path from being mined or sourced to being used and then being wasted, it becomes more of a circle, which obviously that's what this is all about. Okay, next slide, Sam. So it's not a new idea. I think that's, I'm sure lots of people are already very familiar with this, and it's certainly not a new idea in construction. But I think what everybody in the circular economy group probably feels, I don't want to speak for everybody, it's a really large group, is that in construction, it's really difficult to actually understand how to implement the circular economy. So there are lots of great examples of people using circular principles, especially actually from mainland Europe. I think London and the UK is behind for many reasons, but I definitely think the Nordic countries are producing some of the best examples and some of the best, governance and legislation that can enable the circular economy. So we're behind, I would say, but it's starting to become a part of the conversation. And the GLA, which is the Greater London Authority, they have produced this Design for a Circular Economy primer. So there's talk about how to design for a circular economy, and that's about construction. And now in all major building projects, the developer has to put forward a circular economy statement. So they have to at least pay lip service to the circular economy. But what this means in reality is very difficult to understand, because we don't yet really know what it means. So everyone came to the circular economy group, and we always had, I think, the biggest group when we split into groups. And so there's a lot of interest in it, and some people are real experts and some people are not, but everyone has a great interest. Obviously, everyone recognizes the potential of it. So I just put our mission statement for the group, which this is a constantly changing statement. But essentially, we're working to push for a radical shift in the construction industry so that all buildings in the UK are designed and built in line with circular economy principles. It's our mission to reimagine current building practices to enable regenerative design at all scales and stages of a project, and for the construction industry to have a positive impact on human and planetary health. Which sounds great, doesn't it? But what on earth does that really mean, and how do we get there? I think that's the big question. Okay, next slide, Sam. So the circular economy sounds really great, and there's lots of chat about it. It's very popular, and I think people really love talking about it. In terms of what it actually means for the construction industry, I think it's much less clear. Everyone that came to our group was really, lots of people bringing lots of different knowledge. Some people were working in research projects. Some people had got case studies they'd worked on. But what we realized was that all the bits that we were looking at, we couldn't really figure out how to work together. And actually, as architects or engineers or designers, how would we actually use circular economy principles? We had so many questions, just literally, where do you get this material from? How do you find warranties for these materials? Who is going to supply them? How are you going to collect them? How are you going to then make sure that your building is safe? How do you make a material passport so that you know that the materials go on to have a life at the end of this? Just so many questions, and nobody has the answers. And even as a group, we found ourselves just getting sort of tied up in knots, making things quite complicated and trying to just figure everything out. So next slide, Sam. So we figure it's all tied together, it's all connected, and we were just sort of getting deeper and deeper into sort of the really big questions. So we sort of realized we had to zoom out. So can I have the next slide? And we just decided to take a step back and just try and think, what resources would we need as professionals? So we were asking ourselves, okay, actually, how can we think about this in a way that is really straightforward? And so instead of sort of trying to figure out these sort of big picture things, we decided to actually break down the circular economy challenges that we'd recognized, and do that through the filter of a structure that already existed. So can I have the next slide? And this is a very boring slide, sorry. This is a structure which all architects in the UK will be very familiar with. It's the RIBA, which is the Royal Institute of British Architects, stages of work. So each project that an architect team works through will go from these stages, from 0, which is strategic definition, through 1, which is preparation and brief, then concept design, develop design, and all the way through to handover, and then stage 7, which is in use. So we're all very familiar with this. This is a language and a structure that everybody understands very clearly. But what we realized was this actually also provided a structure for us to dig into the circular economy in a really practical way. So we started to look at each stage and think, okay, actually, what are the challenges that face us when we're trying to think about circular economy, even at the strategic definition at stage 0? Okay, we need to talk to clients. We need to get our clients to understand. We need to think about extra budget that might be necessary. And then when we're talking about planning, we need to think about, what are the implications for planning, concept, all the way through. So then we're talking about materials. And so that sort of helped us create a structure. And out of the back of that, we've put together a CPD series, which we are currently still working on. But we now have a spreadsheet full of amazing speakers. And again, just trying to dig quite deep into really specific and gnarly details that we found are really challenging, because it's very sexy and exciting to talk about the circular economy, but actually it's really difficult to use any of the circular economy principles in practice. So we're just trying to get really into the details. So that's the the sort of one thing we're doing is an event series, and I hope that we'll be able to publicize that soon. So look out for that. And then finally, the other thing that we're pushing for is within these stages of work, we're pushing for an 8th stage, which is the demolition stage. So rather than it being, you know, from 0 to 7 and then it's in use and that's the end, that isn't how we should be building. That isn't how we should be thinking. We should be thinking to stage 8 through to demolition or to reuse from the very beginning. And that way we can make sure that buildings are designed to either be dismantled or to be reassigned and flexible. And so we need to get that design thinking in from the very first stage of the work. So that's the end. Just the final slide. It's just a sort of inspiring image about, we need to think more about not just the raw materials that we use, that we can, you know, specify, but actually how do we start thinking about the materials that are all around us that actually have a huge amount of value. And that's us. You can find us on Twitter, online.
We encourage you to have a look at our website, follow us on Twitter or Instagram, and you can find much more information there.
Okay. So thank you, Sam. Now we can continue with our hosts and with our guests from Niš, with participants from Niš, isn't it?
That's right. Thank you very much, Sam and Megan. We really enjoyed your presentation, and we could find a lot of interesting information, especially for us here. We discuss all the time. So if you saw us talking, it was connected with your presentation. We find out some really interesting aspects, and I really can't wait the last part of the event when we can ask some questions. I'm sure that we have a lot of them. So now it's my pleasure to represent our guests. With me is today Vojislav Kjevrešan. And why is he here? He will tell us more, but I just want to introduce him as a person who is really important part of the Delhi community. Because when they start to create the idea and to build it to the real time, they arrive here in Delhi and ask us how we can help them and can we actually give them our opinion. And we decide to take part and we talk a lot. And today we have a group of the guys with a great energy who want to create a better environment. Vojislav, you can start and tell us more. What is ISO Billboard and how you decide to create it?
Thank you. So I'm here to present my and my friend's project called ISO Billboard. The ISO Billboard is idea which is meant to solve the problem of the posters that are being stick all over our hometown in Niš. The general idea is to make thermal insulation out of those posters, and the thermal insulation is meant to be mounted on the facades of the unfortunate people who are in need. So how did we come up with this idea? At my faculty of civil engineering and architecture, we have a subject called physics of the buildings, I think. And there we study and research thermodynamics and thermal conductivity of various materials. So at one moment, I came up with this idea that maybe those posters could be good thermal insulation, which proved as right after our testings and other research. The general problem of posters is that, you know, whenever there is some concert, football game, you know, every event, the city is flooded with posters, and they are being stuck all over the city. You know, there aren't enough places to legally stick them. So we thought maybe this problem can actually be a solution to another problem. Therefore, we came up with ISO billboards. ISO billboard is a billboard which is meant to legally receive posters, and when the ISO billboard panel reaches certain thickness, we demount it from the billboard, and furthermore, we then recycle those posters into thermal insulation. The interesting thing is that those posters, even though they are paper, are not being recycled because they are full of colors. Therefore, the general project should be resulting in thermal insulation for the people in need. The interesting thing is that the people who can't afford insulation for their homes, they have to spend much more money than those people who can afford. So, you know, the people who don't have to pay more, and that, I mean, that's kind of paradoxical. And the other part of the project, for our general idea to be financially to achieve financial sustainability, the billboards are meant to have LCD displays which will display commercial advertising. So furthermore, providing insulation to be free for those people who are in need, and achieving sustainability. There are other details about this project, but generally that would be the general idea. So I can answer any questions later.
Thank you, Vojislav. So we was there through the whole of the process, and you start create great idea. Everybody were delighted with that. And what happened after that? You map some location, and what was the step? What was the answer of the city when you try to say that circular economy can be created here in our city, that recycled material can be used in some, let's say, normal purpose, or we can make their life longer using them on the different place? What was the answer of the authorities?
Well, in the beginning, they wanted to see this idea being realized, but that was, you know, just the first contact with the authorities, and they were like, their reaction was good. They wanted to see it happen, but later when it came up to rules and regulations, you know, the problem is concerning those commercial advertising. There is, I think, there is it's not a competition. Something like competition between the companies which do commercial advertising on the streets, and it is just you know, you can't get into that circle. There are some people which have their positions, and you know, they're just not going to give you the places on those contexts.
Yeah. Thank you. It was really interesting, and we can share a lot of actions that we've done here, especially when ISO billboard is is part of them and why they are here in this talk. Because if we talk about activism in architecture, that is what those people do. That is what they actually want to do, and they have a lot of problems because of that. All the doors are usually closed to them because people here doesn't understand very well what is the main idea of the ISO billboard, and that is why they need, I can say openly, bigger support for everybody, especially from us who are here in this meeting and event. Thank you, Vojislav. I'm sure that there will be a lot of questions, especially for you. And now it's my honor to represent Mr. Ivan Reddy. How to say? He's the biggest friend maybe of the Delhi space, and he's have one interesting sentence which means Delhi space who is gathering together. Actually, it's not share, it's gathering together, and we like to quote that a lot of time. Mr. Reddy will talk on Serbian, and you can follow his sentence on the PowerPoint presentation, which will be on the screen. So, Mr. Reddy, thank you for your time. Thank you for choosing to participate. I know that you are pretty stuck with the time, especially because before a few days, Mr. Reddy became 5th-time grandpa. And once again, I want to congratulate on that. And can you share a lot of experience that you have with us here in 50 minutes? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Na ovom slajdu prvom kažem jednu misao za koju držim da je važna, a to je putnici daju smisao putu. To je zapravo jedan prilog proučavanju globalnih i lokalnih promjena u arhitekturi. Dragi prijatelji, za preko 55 godina intenzivnog bavljenja arhitekturom, ovo je prvi put da globalne, odnosno lokalne promjene u arhitekturi analiziram na bitno drugačijim osnovama u odnosu na one koje sam kao arhitekta imao. A evo i zašto. Dugi niz godina razvoja arhitekture sam posmatrao u klasičnom kontekstu napretka bez analize relativno naglih skokova u tom procesu. Međutim, promjene u svijetu zadnjih godina ukazale su mi na to da sam postao svedok razvoja čovečanstva koji se ubrzava geometrijskom progresijom. Već danas je sagledivo da će tehnologija napredovati u okviru interneta stvari, da će veštačka inteligencija raditi mnoge poslove koje trenutno rade ljudi, a naša tela će biti toliko high-tech da nećemo moći da razlučimo šta je u nama prirodno, a šta je veštačko. Drugim rečima, možemo sa sigurnošću reći, 4. industrijska revolucija je već tu. Svetski ekonomski forum definiše 4. industrijsku revoluciju koja se sada nalazi u prvoj fazi razvoja, a koja je nadogradnja 3. ističući da je karakterišu spajanje tehnologija koje brišu granice između fizičkog, digitalnog i biološkog. Osnivač i predsjednik Svetskog ekonomskog foruma Klaus Schwab kaže: promenit ćemo ne samo ono što radimo, već i ono ko smo. Ona će uticati na naš identitet i sve što je s njim povezano. Našu privatnost, pitanje vlasništva, konzumiranje dobara, vreme koje provodimo u poslu i slobodno vreme, kako gajimo svoje veštine, kako gajimo svoje veze, kako komuniciramo. Zahvaljujući 3D štampanju i robotici, mogli bismo da nadoknadimo resurse koje trošimo i da dođemo do tačke u kojoj će naš razvoj neće zavisiti od prirodnih resursa. Ako internet stvari predstavljaju milijarde povezanih uređaja, onda 4. industrijska revolucija predstavlja ljude povezane s tim uređajima, čiji je kapacitet čuvanja, proizvodnje i deljenja znanja skoro beskonačan. A taj kapacitet je omogućen tehnologijama koje se paralelno razvijaju u domenu povezanih uređaja, robotike, veštačke inteligencije, autonomnih vozila, 3D štampanja, nanotehnologija, biotehnologija, kvantne informatike, ističe Jelena Tušup na stranici inicijativa Digitalna Srbija. O demografskom razvoju rekao bih nekoliko reči i smatram to vrlo važno. Na samom početku sam vam skrenuo pažnju da se čovečanstvo razvija geometrijskom progresijom u svim svojim segmentima. Pogledajmo kao prvo kako je izgledao proces sa narastanjem ljudske populacije na globalnom nivou. Vidimo da je oko 1000. 275 miliona, oko 1800. već je 1 milijarda, 1900. 1,6 milijardi, pa tako sve do 2017. sa 7,4 milijardi. Ako znamo da ljudska civilizacija postoji desetinama hiljada godina, postavlja se pitanje šta je uzrok njenog globalnog progresivnog rasta koji počinje u periodu između 18. i 19. veka. Sličan razvoj možemo da pratimo i na lokalnom, gradskom nivou. Kao zgodne primere za ovu priliku izdvojio sam gradove London iz Velike Britanije i Niš iz Republike Srbije. Kao što vidimo, London, Velika Britanija je oko 1100. 18.000 stanovnika, 1801. 959.000, skoro milion, pa onda 901. 4,5 miliona, 6,5 miliona, da bi 2015. London imao 8,5 miliona stanovnika. Slična situacija, samo u mnogo manjoj meri, je i sa Nišem. Nažalost, podatke o Nišu imamo tek od 1879. godine, kada je Niš imao, kao što vidite na dijagramu, 12.817 stanovnika. Da bi 1900. to već duplirao, 61. učetvostručio, 1981. 165.000, 1991. 179.000, da bi 2011. kada je bio zadnji popis, već brojao 260.000. Šta je uzrok svemu tome? To su industrijske revolucije, jer ako izvršimo analizu navedenih podataka, ukazuje da se pojavljuju ključni periodi u kojima je demografski rast vrlo veliki. Te dinamične faze razvoja su zapravo periodi industrijskih revolucija. Krenimo od prve. prva industrijska revolucija se javlja u periodu od sredine 18. do sredine 19. veka. Njena bitna karakteristika je prelaz na nove proizvodne procese, odnosno prelaz na ručnu proizvodnju mašina, odnosno sa manufakturnog na industrijski rad. Prelazak sa korišćenja drveta kao energenta na ugalj, nove hemijske proizvodnje. Međutim, svakako, najznačajniji pronalazak tog perioda je bila parna mašina, koja je koristila vodenu paru kao pogonsko sredstvo, a to je podstaklo povećanju potražnju za gvožđe. Iz tog perioda su mnogi važni pronalasci koji se i danas koriste. Parobrod, parna lokomotiva, telegraf, fotografski aparat i tako dalje. Velike društvene promene dogodile su se i u procesu prelaza iz feudalnog u građansko društvo, kao i u razvoju ruralnih sredina, primjena modernih sredstava za rad, primjena veštačkih đubriva i primjena selekcije kod semena i stoke. Ekonomista Tere McCloskey smatra da je industrijska revolucija najvažniji događaj u istoriji čovečanstva od perioda pripotomljavanja životinja, sadnje biljaka i korišćenja vatre. Druga industrijska revolucija, koja se javlja tokom druge polovine 19. i početka 20. veka, je zapravo nastavak progresivnog razvoja koji je nastao u toku prve industrijske revolucije, ali sa još većim intenzitetom i kompleksitetom, kako u privredi, tako i u razvoju društva. Jedan od najznačajnijih stimulansa razvoja u ovom periodu je početak eksploatacije nafte, koja postaje najvažniji izvor pogonske energije. Drugi stimulans je bila primjena električne energije. Ali u okviru druge industrijske revolucije su i proizvodnja čelika od istepljenog sirovog gvožđa, motori sa unutrašnjim sagorevanjem, a automobili počinju da se proizvode serijski, što bitno menja saobraćaj. Pored snažnog razvoja saobraćaja na kopnu i na moru, razvija se i vazdušni saobraćaj. I nauka se razvija sve brže. Od sistematizacije hemijskih elemenata na osnovu atomske mase, otkrivanja prouzrokovača besnila, tuberkuloze, tifusa i kolere, kao i vakcine za njihovo lečenje, što je spasilo milione ljudi sigurno smrti, samo su mali deo onoga što se dogodilo u tom periodu. Izuzetno velike promene dogodile su se i u tadašnjoj društvenoj zajednici, a čija bitna karakteristika je migracija ljudi iz sela u gradove, odnosno značajno povećanje gustine naseljenosti. Treća industrijska revolucija ili digitalna revolucija javlja se u periodu od 1980. godine, kada nastaju promene iz analogne i elektronske tehnologije u digitalnu tehnologiju, a njen razvoj traje i dan danas. Prvi lični računari pojavili su se 70. godina, ali ubrzanije širenje počinje 80. da bi do 90. korišćenje kompjutera postalo neophodno za mnoge poslove. Na ovom mestu ću napraviti malu digresiju. Naime, 1990. godine u arhitektonskom birovu u Gracu u kome sam radio počelo se sa uvođenjem nove tehnologije rada na izradi projekta. projekata. I umjesto da sa mlađim koleginicama i kolegama počnem sa edukacijom, ja sam manirom arhitekte sa iskustvom to blagonaklonno odbio, smatrajući da je moje crtačko iskustvo neprikosnoveno. Već samo godinu dana kasnije bio sam sa svojim klasičnom tehnologijom izrade projekata daleko iza. Trebalo mi je 5 dugih godina samoučkog rada da bih nadoknadio propušteno. Bila je to možda moja najveća greška u dugoj profesionalnoj karijeri. Sredinom 90-ih internet sa World Wide Webom ulazi u centar pažnje mnogih firmi, a skoro sve zemlje sveta imali su konekciju. Nakon što je digitalna revolucija znatno izmenila društva razvijenog sveta, usledilo je oko 2000. godine i njeno širenje na zemlje u razvoju. Do 2010. godine 2 milijarde ljudi je koristilo internet, a taj broj ubrzano raste zahvaljujući tabletima i smart telefonima. Prema nekim analizama, 2019. godine više od polovine stanovnika planete, oko 4,1 milijarda ljudi, imalo je pristup internetu. Očekuje se da sada pred čovječanstvom stoji zadatak da se preostalih 3,5 milijarde povežu na svetsku mrežu kako bi se i njima otvorile perspektive ekonomskog, ali rekao bih i svakog drugog razvoja. Dragi prijatelji, promjene u svetu u proteklih 250 godina, kako na globalnom, tako i na lokalnom nivou, su revolucionarne u svakom pogledu. Društvenom, ekonomskom, tehnološkom, naučnom i tako dalje. Za mene se, kao neko ko ima 77 godina, postavlja jedno drugo ključno pitanje koje proizilazi iz naslova ovog izlaganja. Ko su danas putnici koji će davati smisao putu? Moja je velika sreća da sam na ovom skupu upoznao mlade ljude iz Londona, okupljene oko ASEANA, ali i Niša, okupljene oko Izo Billboarda i naravno mog dragog Delija, koji mi daju nadu za vreme koje dolazi. Verujem da će se svet u tom vremenu i dalje revolucionarno menjati, ali da ćete se i vi, dragi moji prijatelji, menjati sa njim. Veliko hvala. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. This was really, really great, and we enjoyed this presentation all the time. Thank you for moving us back and showing us some important points of view which we maybe sometimes don't see because of the time that we don't have, of the speed that we are moving forward, and etc. And thank you for everything. Okay, so we've finished the part where we present ourselves, present our ideas and what we do and who we are. So now I will open the discussion between the lectures and the moderators. So Ružica, if you have something to add, or Sam, Megan, please, this is the moment when you can take a word. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank our lecturers for interesting presentations, pretty different between on the topic, but they are meeting on some point on the same thema that we proposed for this urban talk. So I would like to hear first Sam and Megan, what do they have to say about those presentations from Niche? Because one is actually what you are working, dealing with, the circular economy, and the other is some thinking of our past and future. Please.
Yeah, I think they're both fantastically interesting ideas and great presentations. Thanks, guys. And yeah, it's such a diverse panel. what an interesting sort of cross of ideas that we're looking through. I think we've it's a billboard where you're looking at a waste stream and identifying and solving a key social issue with that. That's an incredible thing to be doing, and that is activism. That's taking a problem that you've seen and really running with it. And I think more people need that mindset. It goes across disciplines and across that sort of broad systematic thinking. We need more of that. And I think that having the courage to go and do that, and the support from DeliSpace or from the fellow creatives around you to be able to do that is really important. I think that's the biggest thing I've got from ACAN, is that there is a network of individuals out there who share the same beliefs as I do, and ACAN has just allowed us to connect together, share links, share resources, and help each other out. And that's, I think, how we will tackle these sorts of big issues, is by collectively working together.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I think that final presentation was just so sort of moving to see someone who has such a long and obviously successful career in architecture being able to take that long view. And I think the question, who are the passengers that give meaning, or the travelers that give meaning to the road, is such a good question. I don't know if that comes from I don't know if that is an existing saying, but I've been thinking about that throughout, and how thinking about not only the journey that we're on, but the people that are making that journey, I think is really important. And that message that we need to continue learning and we need to continue adapting and changing. It's not okay just to, if the tools are unfamiliar, it's not okay just to want to stick with whatever it might be, your pencil or your CAD package or your steel structure that you're used to using. That's not good enough anymore. We need to keep iterating and think in a really agile way to make sure that we're answering questions and we're not just making more problems. I think having that view, putting this moment into a historical perspective, and recognizing that this is one of a pattern of revolutions, but each one is more profoundly affecting and the change is coming faster. I think that's really important. And actually, I spoke to my granddad last night, who's 96. It's just reminded me, I spoke to him, rang him up for a chat, and we talked about this. And we were talking about history and how fast things change and how that speed of change is getting dramatically faster. I think that's something that we need to bear in mind, that we are a moment in history only, and we have the power to change what the future looks like. And I just wanted to ask sort of practical question about the amazing billboard material. Something that we've come across quite a lot is that we see these amazing case studies and these materials that can be used, but actually we don't know how to use them in our buildings or designs because they don't have the warranties that we need in terms of fire safety or, general materials approvals, or other people don't know how to deal with them. So I was wondering, how has that material, how are you actually using it? What are the challenges that you've had to address bringing that to market?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Megan. Okay, so here's the question: who can guarantee that the material is safe, and how we can be sure that it can be used for the purpose of isolation?
Yeah, so that was maybe the most common question. You know, it really doesn't make sense for a paper to be fire safe. So generally, the paper is compressed, so there isn't much air in it. So itself doesn't burn easily. And besides that, we meant to use fire protecting fire protecting materials besides it, so it could be completely safe. That was one of the challenges, and that would be pretty much it.
Did you have some tests? Did you try it? I remember that there was a topic talk about some glue that will help us for not making a fire when
Yes.
we put that as isolation material.
Yes, so there are basically two ways to prevent fire on our thermal insulation panels. That's pure compression, you know, lack of oxygen, and the other are other unable to burn glues. So that would be the solution. You know, the other problems are technical, you know, that are actually much bigger for us to get into the regulations and for that material to be approved. We didn't even reach that stage because we were there. There wasn't even need to, because we didn't get there because of the city authorities. We couldn't get the approval to get our project started.
Yeah. So can you just share with us how many panels, billboards, there we need for one approximately house?
Well, our city has the capacity to thermally insulate about 3 average houses in 3 months. That's not a big solution to waste of energy, but it's a 100% solution to the problem of city posters in the city. So, I mean, generally, it doesn't make a huge difference if we are talking about energy waste in the city. You know, it's gonna be approximately the same as it was before. But if we are talking about one problem being a solution to another, that's the whole point. I mean, even if the effect isn't as big, you know, as we need it.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think that boils the answer on the question. If there is any other question from the panelists, if not, we can include the participants. Yeah.
Did you have a chance to actually apply somewhere your thermal insulation panels until now?
No, we had problem collecting. We did some actual testings and other research, but no, not one home doesn't have our thermal insulation, because we just can't get to all of the posters. You know, we can't get the approval to actually put a billboard somewhere on the street, so that we could get the material for our insulation. So we did some testings, but we don't have any actual building or home that we have thermally insulated by now.
Okay. I understand, but have you been also in touch with some kind of a construction company from Niš, or is there someone who is already aware of your project that could be the part of it in a way, or maybe to get in touch with an advertising company that would give their posters for free? I mean, they're just not recycling them in any kind of way.
Yes, we were in touch with the general director of Alma Quattro, and we had we had a short meeting, and we had an agreement for our problem. So they did want to give us posters. But then again, we come to the problem of financial sustainability. So the problem is that we are very much, I mean, without the city authorities, we can't actually do anything legally. We can't, even if we would make the whole facade, we could put them on the houses, but that would be that would be illegal, you know, because that kind of insulation isn't approved by the regulations.
So you have still a long path to go to pass all the kind of regulations and everything that you need to get the permission actually to apply the material.
Yes, that is actually the biggest problem, because I mean, technically everything is able to be done, but the regulations and the laws are our biggest problem at the moment.
Yeah, that's the next step of your project, to solve these kind of problems. with the help of the city authorities and with the help of the people from the construction business. And yeah, but it's a very good idea, and it's a good idea to start with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Želim samo par reči na ovu temu da kažem.
Mr. Ray just want a few words to add on this topic.
Pred 10 godina su dve studentkinje iz Graca za svoj diplomski rad razmatrale pitanje oglašavanja po gradu.
Before a few years, two students from the University of Graz,
Architect
the faculty, decide to try research of the advertising in the city.
Naime, oglašavanje u Gracu i većini gradova Europe
Actually, the advertising of the Graz and in the most of the cities in the Europe
i gradova u Srbiji ili u ovom regionu se bitno razlikuje.
and the cities in the Serbia and actually the whole this Balkan region is pretty different.
Zato ja kao neko ko sada živi u Nišu
That's the reason why me, as somebody who now is living in the city of Niš,
smatram da je ovaj projekat posebno interesantan
think that this project, this is a billboard project, is especially interesting
za ovaj region.
for this region.
Njega posmatrati samo kao reciklažni ili kao tehnički problem ili samo finansijski bilo bi premalo.
looking at it as just a recycling problem or a technical problem or financial problem would be, we can say, ridiculous.
Za gradove ovog regiona bio bi to korak ka mnogo lepšim gradovima.
For the cities from this region, it would be a step forward to the best cities and prettiest cities.
Naime, svaki izbori,
Actually, every election,
svaka smrt
every death
se u ovom regionu oglašava bilo gde u gradu.
in this region would be advertised in the city everywhere, so in the paper posters.
Uvođenje jednog ovakvog sistema
Using one of these kind of systems
rešilo bi taj gradski problem,
would solve that city problem,
ali i sve one probleme o kojima je moj mladi kolega govorio.
but not just that, but all the other problems that his young colleague just mentioned.
Suština za mene je u ovoj priči
The point for me in this story is
da ovi mladi ljudi žele da menjaju svet u kome žive.
that those young people want to change the world in which they are living now.
Koliko će to trajati, ja ne mogu da kažem.
How long that it will be, I cannot say right now,
Ali povezivanje sa ljudima u drugim regionima,
but connection with the people from the other region,
sa naukom,
with science,
sa ekonomijom, sa bilo kojim drugim je veliki zadatak za ovu mladu ekipu.
with science, with economy, with any other topic, and science will be really important for this young crew.
Bez toga ona neće moći da idu dalje.
Without that, they would not have opportunity to move forward.
Zato su mreže, umrežavanje ljudi i znanja od presudnog značaja za napredak svakog društva, pa i ovog ovde.
That is why our networks and connections are the most important part for the succeed of all the people. Thank you. Okay.
If there is some questions that we received on
Yeah,
the
we
chat.
have some question in the chat. So Danica want to ask scientists, very hard to force people to become more serious about sustainability. Also include of architecture profession. What do you think is the possible to implement ecological design demands in architecture and construction, whatsoever new buildings can be green and energy efficient? The question is to everyone. Okay, so maybe Sam, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think I try and stop using the word sustainability as much as I can now, because I feel like the word is totally devalued, certainly in the English language. And what is sustainable? What does it mean? It just means less bad. And I try and wherever I can use regenerative and this idea of feeding back, making a positive contribution to what you're doing. And I think that comes from just being a bit more literate about the problem. So like you said, on the road changes you. The last year has changed me immeasurably. I spent the April protests sort of sitting at my desk, like feeling guilty that I should be involved in protest. In October, I wandered around the streets, and met these fantastic architects who wanted to make a change too. That was a year ago. That was just a year ago, and the amount of things that I've done in that time is incredible. And it's really changed my mindset. And I think so now I've left a fairly stable job, a career that I've spent years training for, and I'm establishing a company to teach carbon literacy to the construction industry. A year ago, I would never have imagined doing that. But I feel now that the best thing I can do for the industry is to help other people understand the full implications of the climate science and how the construction industry has a huge impact on that. And so I think carbon literacy is the most important thing to help anybody design better. And I think that goes to architects and engineers and quantity surveyors, even your local bricklayer. When you start thinking about these things, these big issues, then just carrying on with business as usual just isn't an option. It just doesn't feel right. And so you end up looking for those innovative solutions, like reusing posters, or thinking about big data, or how to connect with people who are doing things in a way that more aligns with what you understand. So I think it's education that needs to change. And it's not necessarily education for students who are in university now. I think they're quite well versed on the issues. And I think they're forcing their tutors to think differently. We need to educate the CEOs, the directors of companies, and make sure that they're the ones who have this immediate impact right now. And we need to do this in the next 10 years. If we don't, we're living in a very bad world.
I think I'll add to that, but I'll maybe be slightly less nice about it, because I think Sam's absolutely right. It is about education, absolutely. But I think the question that's posed is a good one, because it says, since it is very hard to force people to become more conscious, because I guess even through education, you can't force people to be educated. So I think that education has to go hand in hand with legislative and financial implications for the building industry. And of course, that comes through education. And I think, I don't know, I can't speak for Europe, but in Britain, we've seen a really dramatic shift in public consciousness over the last year or 2 years, 18 months maybe, as a result of the Extinction Rebellion uprising, largely. I think both Sam and I were there. But as a result of that, that in itself is education. And through that uprising, the very public protest on the streets, that has led to a shift in consciousness, which has been seen in central government, it's been seen in local government, and there is a sense now, it's not across every single area of the UK by any means, but there is definitely a shift towards governments, local governments and national government, recognising this as a climate emergency. But the question is, what can we force people to do? And I think that is such a good question, because until people are forced to do it, they won't do it. And at the moment, that force is coming through social shaming. It's coming because there is a sense that if you are doing something unsustainable, then you are a bad business. And there is now that growing sense, but it's probably not enough to make the shift fast enough. So I really think this is something that we keep coming back to again and again in the circular economy, is should we have a stick or should we have a carrot? And I kind of think we need to have both. We need to be like putting a financial implication on carbon. We need to have carbon tax. We need to be thinking in a really holistic way. And that needs to have a financial implication, because until it has financial implications, it's not going to be taken seriously enough, and it's not going to be taken fast enough. So in terms of like how you force it, I think it's got to come through legislation, and it's got to come through financial penalties. Sorry to be gloomy.
I think you're totally right.
Can I just we just add something. Actually, we invited Dragana Korica from the Green Building Council of Serbia, She's the executive director, and we'd like her to join us for this discussion because she is the director of one association that gathers people from construction business, but also architectural schools from all over Serbia, and they are the part of the World Green Building Council. So I would like to ask her, after this conversation and after these talks that we heard until now, what does she can say about what is happening in Serbia and what is the situation on this, let's say, higher level of the society or the construction business or the educational system. Dragana, please start.
Hvala Danice. Hoćeš i ti prevoditi?
Da. I'll translate a little bit for Dragana.
Okay. Ja bih se zahvalila Megan i Semu, pre svega,
She would
na
like to
njihovoj
come to Dragana.
prezentaciji.
Okay.
Zato što se naše priče donekle i preklapaju, jer kao što si rekla, mi smo Savez zelene gradnje Srbije i deo smo te veće zajednice Svetskog saveta.
Because she would like to thank to the participation and to the talk of Megan and Sam, because in a way their stories are overlapping, and we are the member of this World Council of Green Building.
World Green Building Council, yes.
Sorry?
World Green
World
Building,
Green Building Council.
yes. Ok, iz tog ugla želim da kažem, oni verovatno i sarađuju sa UK GDC-em iz Londona kao asocijacijom u kojoj se preklapaju ove teme.
Because probably they are collaborating with the same organization from the Great Britain, from the UK, because this is kind of overlapping topics, so they're probably aware of their work.
Dakle, mi smo neprofitna, nevladina i članska organizacija.
We are non-profit and non-governmental and a membership organization.
I iz tog ugla želim da kažem, kada pitaju članska, šta to u stvari znači?
And from that point of view, I would like to say, what does it mean to be a member of it?
Naše članice zaista rade sa ciljem promocije održive i zelene gradnje.
Our members are really working very hard to promote the ideas of green and sustainable building construction.
Da, znači to su, da kažem, društveno odgovorne kompanije, akademske organizacije, pojedinci, stručnjaci, pa i studenti kao pridruženi članovi.
So these are socially aware, devoted companies, and also academical institutions, some companies, even architects themselves, and students as members as well.
Koji na terenu Srbije zaista doprinose promociji održive i zelene gradnje kroz svoje aktivnosti, rad i proizvode.
And they are promoting the ideas of green and sustainable construction business within their activities and also within their products that they make. And some promotional activities that they also organize.
Bilo da se bave konsultantskim uslugama i u domenu zelene gradnje i sertifikacijom, zelenom sertifikacijom.
I couldn't hear you. Either they are working as consultants or educators. I couldn't hear you.
Htela sam da kažem da mnogi od njih se bave poslovima kojima promovišu zelenu gradnju i održivu gradnju.
They are promoting green building and sustainable building within their activities.
Bilo da kroz svoje proizvode koji su u tom obliku da recimo imaju antimikrobna svojstva. Bilo da su u pitanju načina koji proizvode i koriste reciklirajuće materijale.
Either through their products that they produce using recyclable materials,
bilo da je njihova proizvodnja na održivi način kroz implementaciju obnovljivih izvora energije,
or that they produce with the systems of the reusable recycling waste energy system.
bilo da grade objekte koji su zeleni i održivi sertifikacijom dokazani,
Either that they build objects that they are sustainable and they have the
objekte koji su zeleni, dokazano zeleni kroz sertifikaciju,
or that they are green through the specifications that they receive.
implementirajući neke inovativne principe kojima će smanjiti potrošnju energije, pa samim tim i emisiju ugljen dioksida.
That they use some kind of innovative ways of building, that they reduce the energy use, and with that kind also make less use of carbon dioxide.
Sama suština jeste u stvari da želim da kažem da su članice Saveta zelene gradnje zaista opravdano u samom udruženju i stoje iza promocije održivog i zelenog principa koje mi ovde zastupamo.
So all of the members are really into this topic, and they are proving with their with what they do that they really support this kind of ideas behind the council, behind the green and the sustainable building.
Suština je da je nama cilj da način na koji se sada gradi pretrpi transformaciju.
The idea, our main aim is that the system that we build now should transform itself in the future.
Upravo iz razloga što građevinski sektor ima ogroman negativan uticaj.
Mainly because the construction business have the biggest negative impact.
Bilo da je to odraženo kroz količinu utrošene energije,
either through the usage of the energy,
emisiju ugljen dioksida, potrošnju resursa, pijaće vode i pa na kraju i količine otpada koje iza njega ostaje.
Emission of the carbon dioxide, usage of the water, or the residue that stays afterwards, after the job is finished.
Kao što su Sam i Megan rekli, klimatske inicijative su globalne.
As Sam and Megan said, the climate initiatives are global.
I svi se okreću ka tim nekim konceptima održivosti.
And everybody is talking about the concepts of sustainability.
Ako se spustimo na nivo Evrope, samo dve stvari koje su se desile u toku ove godine ukazuju upravo na pravce kojima ćemo se kretati u narednim koracima.
If we are talking about the European level, only two things are showing the way in which we are going to go in the next year.
In the next steps.
In the coming time.
Znači, Sam i Megan su upravo pomenuli cirkularnost kao jednu od osnovnih principa koji oni ovde zagovaraju.
Sam and Megan mentioned the circular economy as one of the main principles that they are fighting for.
A Evropska unija je akcionim planom o cirkularnoj ekonomiji upravo ove godine izašla na svetlost dana kao jedan od ključnih stvari kojima će se baviti. Akcioni plan o cirkularnoj ekonomiji.
Which is the same thing that the European Union points in the action plan for the circular economy. That's one of the main aims that they are going to fight for also.
Druga stvar koja jeste važna, a odnosi se na građevinski sektor i kada kažem građevinski sektor, tada mislim ne samo na građevinsku industriju, tržište, već i dodirne sektore, a istovremeno i samu izgrađenu sredinu.
And the other thing that is important for the construction sector, and in that sense I'm not meaning only for the construction business, but for the for the other disciplines that are connected with it.
S druge strane, poslednje inicijative ukazuju da Evropa sprema vrlo ozbiljan plan, odnosno radi na usvajanju regulative kojom će prouzrokovati da Evropa postane prvi klimatski neutralan kontinent.
Europe is working very hard on the issue to become the first climate neutral continent in the world.
Da. Oni su proletos pošli od ideje da to bude smanjenje emisiju za 40%.
Last spring they started from the idea to reduce the carbon dioxide emission for 40%.
A ni 10 dana unazad je plan, bar je predsjednica Evropske komisije izašla sa mnogo jačim planom, ambicioznijim planom da to poraste na 55% smanjenje emisije ugljen dioksida do 2050. godine.
But only 10 days ago, the president of the EU Commission mentioned that a much higher percentage, 55% of less carbon emission, carbon dioxide emission.
Do 2050.
Until 2050.
Ako iz tog ugla pogledamo kako se regulativa odvija na tom, da kažem, evropskom nivou,
if we are from that angle see the perspective of the development of the regulations on the European level,
i vratimo se na nivo naše države koja ima plan da se priključi Evropskoj,
and come back to our state which is in the phase of entering the European Union,
da je pred nama otvaranje poglavlja 27 koje se odnosi na životnu sredinu.
And one of the steps toward on that path is opening the chapter 27, which is related to the environment, living environment.
I uparimo sada činjenicu o negativnom uticaju građevinskog sektora.
And if we are looking also at the negative impact on the building, on the construction sector.
Sa činjenicom da je građevinska industrija jedna od najjačih privreda u Srbiji.
With the idea that the construction business is one of the strongest industries in Serbia.
Koja je prošle godine imala rast od preko 28% u bruto nacionalnom dohotku.
Which has degrowth in the national 28% in the national income.
I da je i pored pandemije i ove godine zabeležen rast.
And that despite the pandemia, the degrowth is also the growth is also present even this year.
Jasno je zašto građevinski sektor mora da bude taj koji treba da pretrpi tu transformaciju ka negativnog u neutralan uticaj.
It's very clear why this sector needs to transform from negative into neutral position.
I to ne samo iz aspekta održivosti u smislu ekološke održivosti, čuvanja resursa ili opstanka planete.
And not only because of the ecological issues and the saving of the planet.
Već ujedno da to bude i podrška ekonomskom razvoju.
But also to be a kind of support for the economical growth.
To je veoma važna stvar za opstanak. Znači ne razdvajati te činjenice.
Which is very important for the surviving, and we need not to disconnect these two facts.
Kako su Sam i Megan pominjali otpad i njegovo vrlo slikovito prikazali šta znači cirkularna ekonomija.
As Sam and Megan mentioned garbage, and very nice represent how does it look like, what you can use it or not use it, how you can use it or not use it.
Onda mi treba da gledamo na taj otpad kao na kapital, na nešto što on može da stvara kapital.
Then we have to see So
On je
then,
prilika da stvaramo kapital.
and then we can look at it as a kind of garbage as a capital, that's something that we can make capital out of it, some kind of quality, new value.
Da. Ono što jeste da pored principa cirkularne ekonomije,
Apart from the principle of the circular economy,
neki od ključnih principa koje mi ovde trenutno, da kažem, aktuelno promovišemo jesu i životni ciklus, odnosno implementacija principa životnog ciklusa.
some of the other principles that we promote is the principle of the life cycle,
Kao i ta klimatska neutralnost koja se ogleda u povezivanju energije i emisije u smislu formiranja net zero principa.
and the climate neutrality, which možeš da ponoviš?
Znači, kao jedan od stvari koje promovišemo jeste upravo zagovaranje te klimatske neutralnosti, koja se ogleda kroz objedinjenje i povezivanje energije i emisije. Znači, graditi da bude net zero.
So this climate neutrality actually combines use and
Energy use and emission.
energy use and energy emission to become net zero.
Yes. Iako je to možda u ovom koraku vrlo ambiciozno za našu državu, ali dobro je sagledati perspektivu.
Even though it's very ambitious for our state at this moment, it's very good to have it as a perspective.
Iz tog ugla ne bih više ni oduzimala vremena, dosta su Megan i Sam već ispričali. Htela bih samo da kažem da sve naše aktivnosti se odvijaju upravo u pravcu toga da na ovo tržište iznesemo da su te neophodne, da su promene ka zelenom i održivom neophodne i neminovne i nepovratne.
So I wouldn't take more of your time because we talked about this a lot, but I think that it's very important to underline that on this market, in this state, it's very important to say that this kind of changes are a must that we have to face with.
I pozivajući se upravo na vašu priču o cirkularnosti,
and bearing in mind your ideas about the circular economy,
pomenula bih da mi upravo od četvrtka počinjemo jedan program koji ima i edukativni i praktični deo.
I would just like to say that starting this Thursday, we are starting a program that has both educational and practical activities within it.
Gde Savez zelene gradnje Srbije zajedno sa Privrednom komorom i kompanijom koja daje konsultantske usluge u vezi cirkularne ekonomije.
The Green Council of Serbia, the Green Building Council of Serbia, together with the Chamber of Commerce and one company that gives support for circular economy activities.
Sprema program namenjen upravo mladim inženjerima i studentima.
Mostly addressing young professionals and students.
Struka koja u stvari imaju, da kažem, inkluziju u građevinskom sektoru.
Professions that are inclusive within the construction sector, building sector.
Pored drugih, da kažem, pored preostalih principa održive gradnje, akcenat će biti upravo na implementaciji cirkularnosti u građevinskom sektoru.
Apart from other principles of sustainable construction and building, the focus will be on the circularity of the building process.
A pred nama su i dva neka projekta Horizona za koje smo aplicirali na regionalnom nivou, u saradnji na regionalnom nivou i očekujemo odgovor za ta dva projekta. Nadamo se da ćemo ih dobiti. Jedno se odnosi na održivost domova, a drugo takođe na edukaciju koja je neophodna na našem tržištu.
And we are also waiting for results for two Horizon projects that we applied for. as far as I understand, this is together with some academic institutions, with some faculties. And one is about the sustainability of homes. And the other one is about education.
Education about sustainability and green. GB Pro, Green Building Program.
Education about the sustainability and the green building.
Yes. Dakle, otvoreni smo za saradnju, transparentni smo.
So we are open for cooperation, we are transparent.
Pozivamo vas da nas pratite na našim društvenim mrežama i na sajtu.
We are inviting you to follow us of our media, on our networks, social networks, and on our website.
I pozvala bi se na Samovu i Meganu još jednom vrlo interesantnu sliku.
And I would like
velikom i malim ribicama i odnosom.
And I would like also to mention one of Sam and Megan's very interesting illustrations with small and big fishes.
Kod nas je tu malo drugačija relacija.
In our case, it's a little bit different relationship.
Mi kažemo mrvica po mrvica pogača.
We say crumble per crumble, bread makes a bread.
Ili kamen po kamen palača ili dvorac.
Or stone by stone make a house, a building.
Dakle, svesni smo da samo zajedno možemo napraviti korak dalje i u tom smislu smo otvoreni za sve saradnje i pozivamo vas da nam se pridružite.
So we are completely aware that only together we can do and make something important, and therefore we invite you to join us and to work with us.
Hvala.
Thank you. Hvala, Dragana. So, if you have any comments on what Dragana just explained and says, and I think it's also very important that there is a kind of organization of this kind that is really open to another kind of cooperation, and that maybe this is something they can somehow maybe help to develop projects like ISOBillboard or some similar.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Dragana. She really shared some really interesting points and information with us. You maybe saw all the time there was a discussion about the what she talked about. So I will call now everybody if there is any other question. If somebody wants to ask, you can ask for the word the name will give you. If not, so I can just say that I think that this is the end of the today event of today meeting. And at the end, I want to thanks first to the Ružica and the crew for the choosing Delhi space and for the partnership. After that, I want to thanks to all the other participants, especially for the UK, to Sam and to Megan. Thanks for your time. Thanks for share with us all the points, all the interesting information, and thanks for activism in this sphere. I really appreciate that, because I think that activism is the most important part of the every topic. And I can say at the end, thanks to Mr. Reddy. Thanks for taking your time to participate in here, share your life story with us, especially, and Vojislav from ISOBillboard for again putting up topic of ISOBillboard in the media. And I hope that today and in the next day we will have more luck than we have in the past. And at the end, I want to thank to my colleagues who are off the screen. Thanks to Nemanja, he was the charge for all the equipment and procedures that we have. So I hope that everybody hear well and that we can follow all our presentation. And other thanks to Tamara, who creates this positive environment here in Delhi space. This is recorded, so everybody could see how it looks. We will share with everybody, and that's all. At the end, I want to give a vote to Ružica. Probably she wants to close up this event. Thanks you very much.
Just I have to thank Future Architecture Platform to provide us to call young people and to make those urban talks. So we have one more urban talk that is happening on 11th of October. So everyone is welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We will be there for sure. All the best. Greetings from Niš. See you again.